The bitter winter wind howls through the narrow streets of Blackwood Falls, a small industrial town nestled in the shadows of smoking factory chimneys. It's December 1906, and frost clings to every surface, transforming the dreary landscape into a glittering, deceptive wonderland. The camera pans slowly across the town square, where gaslights cast eerie shadows against snow-dusted cobblestones. Our story begins at Thornfield Orphanage, a looming Victorian structure that stands apart from the town, its dark silhouette cutting against the gray winter sky. The orphanage was once a grand manor house, but years of neglect have left it weathered and worn, much like the children who call it home. Inside, the walls are bare, save for peeling wallpaper and the occasional religious painting meant to instill moral virtue. The wooden floors creak with every step, as if the building itself is alive, bearing witness to the lives that unfold within its walls. In the east wing of the orphanage, 4 children huddle together in a small room barely warmed by a dying fire. They are not related by blood, but by circumstance, orphaned by various tragedies and brought together by fate. Each carries their own story, their own loss, but they have formed a bond stronger than many families. William, the eldest at 12, stands near the frost-covered window, his breath creating small clouds in the cold air. His serious demeanor belies his age, shoulders already burdened with responsibility beyond his years. His sandy hair falls across his forehead, partially obscuring eyes that have seen too much sorrow for a child. "It's getting colder," he says, turning to the others. "They won't bring more coal until morning." Charlotte sits on a threadbare rug, her skirt carefully arranged around her. At 10, she carries herself with a quiet dignity, her long dark braids meticulously maintained despite their circumstances. She was once the daughter of a schoolteacher, and literacy is her prized possession. A worn copy of The Secret Garden lies open in her lap, its pages yellowed and dog-eared from countless readings. "We should be grateful for what we have," she replies, though her thin shawl does little to protect against the cold. Mrs. Pembroke says complaining is a sin. James, a freckle-faced boy of 8 with a perpetual cowlick, rolls his eyes dramatically. "Mrs. Pembroke says everything is a sin," he whispers, careful that his voice doesn't carry beyond their room. His mischievous nature is a constant source of both trouble and joy for the group. Despite the harsh environment, his spirit remains unbroken, his smile ready to emerge at the slightest provocation. "She'll say you're going to hell for that," William warns, though a small smile tugs at his lips. "I'll save you all seats by the fire," James retorts, earning a giggle from the 4th and smallest member of their group. Emma, just 6 years old, sits closest to the dying embers, her knees pulled up to her chest. With golden curls and wide blue eyes, she looks like a porcelain doll come to life. Unlike the others, Emma rarely speaks of her past or her family. She arrived at Thornfield just 8 months ago, withdrawn and fearful. Only through the patient kindness of the other 3 has she begun to emerge from her shell. "Tell us a story, Charlotte," Emma pleads, her voice soft and melodic. "The one about the fairy kingdom." Charlotte closes her book with a gentle smile. "Again? You've heard it so many times." "Please," Emma insists, her small face lighting up with anticipation. As Charlotte begins her tale, the camera pulls back to reveal that Emma wears mismatched gloves, the right one white and well-maintained, the left a faded brown leather that seems too large for her tiny hand. She clutches it close to her body, as if protecting something precious. Outside, snow begins to fall more heavily, blanketing the world in silence. The orphanage's ancient bell tower strikes 8, its mournful toll echoing across the grounds. Mrs. Pembroke, the stern matron, marches down the hallway, her keys jangling at her waist like prison chains. "Lights out in 5 minutes," she announces without entering their room, her voice clipped and devoid of warmth. "And remember, breakfast is at 6 sharp. Anyone late will go without." The 4 children exchange knowing glances. In their world, rules are rigid and punishment swift. After Mrs. Pembroke's footsteps fade away, they continue their ritual, savoring these precious moments together. "We should sleep," William finally says, ever the practical one. "Tomorrow is laundry day." The mention of chores brings a collective sigh. Laundry day means hours of scrubbing in cold water until their hands are raw and chapped. But like everything else, they will face it together. As they prepare for bed, Emma suddenly becomes agitated, clutching her left hand to her chest. "What's wrong, Emma?" Charlotte asks, kneeling beside the younger girl. "I don't want to take it off," Emma whispers, her eyes darting nervously to the door. William approaches, his voice gentle but firm. "You know the rules, Emma. No gloves in bed. Mrs. Pembroke checks sometimes." With obvious reluctance, Emma slowly begins to remove her right glove, revealing a small, pale hand. But when William reaches for her left hand, she pulls away sharply. "No, I can't." Tears well in her eyes, threatening to spill over. "It's all right," Charlotte soothes, shooting William a warning glance. "You can keep it on tonight. We'll figure something out tomorrow." James, sensing the tension, interjects with his usual humor. "Maybe she's hiding a sixth finger under there, or a magic ring that turns her into a princess at midnight." His joke breaks the tension, and even Emma manages a small smile. As they settle into their beds, William and James in one, Charlotte and Emma in the other, the camera lingers on Emma's gloved left hand, which she tucks carefully beneath her pillow. The night passes, and the scene shifts to early morning. Gray light filters through frosted windows as the orphanage begins to stir. Children move like ghosts through the hallways, their breath visible in the cold air. In the dining hall, bowls of thin porridge are ladled out by Mrs. Pembroke's assistant, a pinch-faced woman named Miss Hatcher. Our four are huddled together at the end of a long table, speaking in hushed tones. "I've been thinking," William says between spoonfuls of the bland breakfast. "We need to find out what's wrong with Emma's hand." Charlotte frowns. "Maybe nothing's wrong. Maybe the glove was her mother's." "Then why won't she show us?" James asks, his usual playfulness subdued by genuine concern. Emma sits silently, focused on her food, seemingly oblivious to their conversation, but her left hand remains beneath the table, out of sight. Their discussion is interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Crawford, the orphanage director. A tall, imposing figure with a silver-tipped cane and mutton-chop whiskers, he surveys the room with cold authority. The children immediately straighten, eyes lowered respectfully. "Children," he announces, his voice echoing in the sudden silence, "I have news. A benefactor will be visiting our humble establishment next week. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, widow of the late industrialist, has expressed interest in our work here." A murmur ripples through the room. The Blackwood name is legendary in these parts, a family whose coal mines and factories have brought both prosperity and hardship to the region. "This is a great opportunity," Mr. Crawford continues. "Mrs. Blackwood may choose to bestow her generous patronage upon us. More importantly, she has indicated she might be looking to adopt." At the word adopt, the atmosphere changes palpably. Adoption is the dream of every child at Thornfield. Escape from the cold walls and strict regimen, the promise of a family. Even the most cynical among them cannot help but hope. "Therefore," Mr. Crawford says, striking his cane once against the floor for emphasis, "I expect exemplary behavior from all of you. The dormitories will be thoroughly cleaned. New clothing will be issued, and you will all practice your manners and deportment." As he speaks, his gaze sweeps across the room, landing briefly on our four friends. His eyes narrow slightly at Emma, who shrinks back, trying to make herself smaller. "That is all. Continue with your breakfast." As Mr. Crawford exits, the dining hall erupts in excited whispers. Adoption is rare enough, but adoption by someone of Mrs. Blackwood's stature would mean a life of privilege beyond imagination. "Do you think it's true?" James asks, his eyes wide with hope, "that she might adopt someone?" "Don't get your hopes up," William warns, though he too seems affected by the possibility. "Rich people come here sometimes. They look around, feel good about themselves, and leave." Charlotte reaches under the table to squeeze Emma's hand reassuringly. "Still, we should put our best foot forward. Who knows?" But when her fingers touch Emma's left hand, still encased in the worn leather glove, the younger girl jerks away so violently that she knocks over her bowl of porridge. The crash draws all eyes to their table. Miss Hatcher marches over, her thin lips pressed into a disapproving line. "Emma Harper, clumsy, careless girl. Clean this up immediately," she demands. Emma scrambles to comply, her small hands trembling as she tries to gather the spilled porridge. But in her haste, she slips on the wet floor and falls, landing hard on her left side. A small, muffled sound comes from beneath her glove, something between a click and a crunch, followed by Emma's sharp intake of breath. Her face goes pale with fear, not pain. "I'm sorry," she whispers, tears welling in her eyes as she cradles her left hand. William is beside her in an instant, helping her up. "She's hurt, Miss Hatcher. I'll clean this." Charlotte can take her to the infirmary. Miss Hatcher seems ready to object, but Charlotte has already guided Emma away from the table, her arm protectively around the smaller girl's shoulders. They disappear through the dining hall doors before anyone can stop them. But instead of heading to the infirmary, Charlotte leads Emma to their secret place, a forgotten storage closet under the stairs, where they sometimes hide from chores or punishment. Once inside, she lights a stub of candle they keep hidden behind a loose brick. "Let me see, Emma," she says gently. "Please, I want to help." Emma backs away until she bumps against the wall. "You can't help. No one can. Whatever it is, I promise I won't tell anyone. Not even William and James if you don't want me to." For a long moment, Emma simply stares at Charlotte, her young face a battlefield of fear and longing, the desire to share her burden fighting against some deep-seated terror. Finally, she speaks, her voice barely audible even in the small confines of their hiding place. "You'll be afraid of me." Charlotte shakes her head firmly. "Never. You're my sister now, Emma. Not by blood, but by choice. Sisters stay together, no matter what." This promise, offered with such sincerity, seems to reach Emma in a way nothing else has. Slowly, hesitantly, she extends her left hand. "It broke when I fell," she whispers. "I can feel something loose inside." Charlotte gently takes Emma's hand in hers, feeling through the glove. There's something odd about the shape beneath the leather, too rigid, too angular. "May I?" she asks, fingers poised at the glove's edge. After a moment's hesitation, Emma nods, her eyes squeezed shut as if bracing for a blow. With extreme care, Charlotte begins to peel back the glove. What she reveals causes her to gasp involuntarily. Where flesh and bone should be, there is an intricate mechanism of brass, copper, and silver, a perfectly crafted mechanical hand, its joints and gears now slightly misaligned from the fall. "Oh, Emma," Charlotte breathes, wonder rather than horror in her voice. "It's beautiful." Emma's eyes fly open in surprise. "You're not scared?" "Why would I be scared? It's like magic." Charlotte gently turns the mechanical hand, admiring the craftsmanship. Each finger can move independently, connected to a system of tiny gears and levers that extend into a copper cuff where Emma's wrist should be. "My father made it," Emma says, her voice gaining strength as she realizes Charlotte truly isn't afraid. "He was an inventor. He said I was born without a proper hand, so he built me a better one. It's amazing," Charlotte says sincerely. "But something's broken?" Emma nods. "The middle finger won't bend right anymore, and something's rattling inside." "William is good with mechanical things," Charlotte suggests. "Remember how he fixed the clock in the common room? Maybe he could help." Fear returns to Emma's face. "No. Mr. Crawford says people would think I'm a freak if they knew, that they'd take me away to a circus or a laboratory. That's why I must always wear the glove." The implications of this sink in slowly. "Mr. Crawford knows about your hand?" "He found out when I first came here. He said he'd keep my secret, but what, Emma? He makes me do things. Special chores, just for him. And sometimes he hurts me if I don't do them right." Charlotte's expression hardens with a protective fury beyond her years. "What kind of things, Emma?" Before Emma can answer, the closet door flies open, flooding their hiding place with harsh light. Mr. Crawford stands there, his imposing figure blocking the exit, his silver-tipped cane clutched tightly in one hand. "I've been looking for you two," he says, his voice deceptively calm. "Miss Hatcher said there was an accident at breakfast." His gaze falls to Emma's exposed mechanical hand, and his lips curve into a cold smile. "Ah, I see Miss Harper has been sharing her little secret." Charlotte instinctively moves in front of Emma. "Leave her alone. She hasn't done anything wrong." "Mr. Crawford chuckles, the sound entirely devoid of humor. "Such spirit, Miss Thornton, but misplaced, I'm afraid." He steps into the closet, closing the door behind him. "Now, let's discuss how we're going to handle this situation." The scene shifts to the laundry room where William and James are up to their elbows in soapy water, scrubbing sheets against washboards. Steam fills the air, providing a small respite from the general chill of the orphanage. "They've been gone too long," William says, glancing at the large clock on the wall. "Emma wasn't hurt that badly." James shrugs, flicking soap bubbles at a younger child passing by. "Maybe they're hiding from chores." "Charlotte's smart like that." "No, something's wrong. I can feel it." William drops the sheet he's washing back into the tub. "I'm going to look for them. Mrs. Pembroke will have your hide if you leave before the washing's done," James warns. "Cover for me. Say I went to fetch more soap." James sighs dramatically but nods. "Fine, but hurry back." William slips out of the laundry room, his wet hands leaving damp prints on the walls as he navigates the corridors. He checks the dormitory first, then the infirmary, finding no sign of the girls. As he passes by Mr. Crawford's office, he hears voices, one unmistakably Emma's, high and frightened. He presses his ear against the door, straining to hear over the pounding of his own heart. "Would be most interested in your unique attributes, Miss Harper," Mr. Crawford is saying. "Mrs. Blackwood's late husband was fascinated by such mechanical innovations. I believe she continues his collection." Collection. Charlotte's voice now, defiant despite a tremor of fear. "Emma is a child, not an object. She is an orphan with a mechanical appendage," Mr. Crawford corrects coldly. "And while I've kept her secret these past months, I believe the time has come to leverage this unique situation to the benefit of Thornfield Orphanage." William's blood runs cold. What is he talking about? What's wrong with Emma? "You can't show her off like some circus attraction," Charlotte protests. "It's cruel." "Cruel?" Mr. Crawford's voice rises slightly. "I've provided food, shelter, and discretion. The world would not be kind to a child like her, but Mrs. Blackwood, she appreciates rarities. Emma would have a comfortable life in her collection." "As what? A living exhibit?" Charlotte's disgust is palpable even through the door. There's a sudden sound of movement, followed by Charlotte's cry of pain. William has heard enough. Without thinking, he bursts through the door. The scene before him freezes in tableau. Mr. Crawford standing menacingly over Charlotte, who is sprawled on the floor, a red mark blooming on her cheek. Emma cowers in the corner, her left hand, a glittering construction of metal and gears, clutched protectively against her chest. "William!" Emma cries, equal parts relief and terror. Mr. Crawford turns slowly, his expression shifting from anger to calculated composure. "Mr. Bennett, this is a private meeting." William helps Charlotte to her feet, positioning himself between the girls and the orphanage director. His mind races to make sense of what he's seeing. Emma's mechanical hand, Charlotte's bruised face, Mr. Crawford's threatening stance. "What's going on here?" he demands, with more courage than he feels. "Nothing that concerns you," Mr. Crawford replies smoothly. "Return to your duties and we'll overlook this intrusion." Charlotte grabs William's arm. He wants to sell Emma to Mrs. Blackwood, like an object. Mr. Crawford's facade of civility slips momentarily. "Nonsense. I am merely considering the best placement for a child with special needs." "You hit Charlotte," William says, his voice hardening. "And you're scaring Emma. Children often misinterpret adult actions," Mr. Crawford says dismissively. "Now I suggest you all return to your chores and forget this unfortunate incident. Otherwise," he leaves the threat hanging, but his meaning is clear. The three children exchange glances, a silent communication born of their months together. As one, they make for the door, William pulling Emma along while Charlotte blocks Mr. Crawford's path. "This isn't over," Mr. Crawford calls after them. "There's nowhere for you to go. No one who would believe you over me." They run through the corridors, ignoring the startled looks of other children and staff. Without discussion, they head for the laundry room, where James is still dutifully scrubbing sheets. "We have to leave," William tells him breathlessly. "Now, all of us." James looks up, taking in their disheveled appearance and panicked expressions. His eyes widen at the sight of Emma's exposed mechanical hand. "Whoa," he breathes. "Is that real?" "Yes, and Mr. Crawford wants to sell her to Mrs. Blackwood," Charlotte explains hurriedly. "Like a curiosity in a collection." James's face darkens. "Over my dead body. We need a plan," William says, pacing between the laundry tubs. "We can't just run into the snow with nowhere to go." "My father had a workshop," Emma offers timidly. "In the city. I remember the address. Maybe some of his friends are still there." "That's too far to walk in this weather," Charlotte says, gently tugging Emma's glove back over her mechanical hand. "We'd freeze before we got halfway." James's face suddenly lights up with his characteristic mischief. "Not if we take the coal delivery wagon. I heard the driver tell Mrs. Pembroke he's heading to the city after he unloads here." William considers this. "We'd have to hide in the empty wagon. It would be cold, but not as cold as walking. And Mr. Crawford would never think to look for us there," Charlotte adds. "He'd expect us to run into town or try to catch a train." Their plan takes shape quickly, fueled by desperation and the bond that has grown between them. They gather what few possessions they have: Charlotte's book, a small wooden horse James carved, a locket containing a picture of William's mother, and a curious brass key that Emma wears on a ribbon around her neck. "It opens my father's workshop," she explains when Charlotte asks about it. "He said I should always keep it with me." They slip out through the kitchen, using the commotion of lunch preparation as cover. The coal wagon stands in the rear courtyard, nearly empty after its delivery. The driver is nowhere to be seen, presumably warming himself with a cup of tea in the kitchen. "Quick!" William urges, helping the others climb into the wagon. They burrow beneath the remaining coal, ignoring the dust and grime that immediately covers their clothes and skin. Not a moment too soon, they hear the driver's voice approaching, along with Mrs. Pembroke's shrill tones discussing the next delivery date. The wagon shifts as the driver climbs onto his seat. With a jerk and the clop of horse hooves on cobblestones, they begin to move. The journey is uncomfortable and frightening. The cold seeps through their clothing despite the residual warmth of the coal. Every bump in the road threatens to expose their hiding place. They remain silent, even when the wagon stops briefly at a checkpoint leaving town. Finally, after what seems like hours, the sounds around them change. More voices, more wagons, the general bustle of a city. The wagon slows and stops. They wait, hearts pounding, until they're sure the driver has gone before cautiously emerging from their hiding place. They find themselves in a narrow alley behind what appears to be a factory. Soot-stained brick walls rise on either side, and the air is thick with industrial smoke. In the distance, church bells chime 4 o'clock. "We made it," James says, his freckled face now black with coal dust except for the white circles around his eyes. "Where are we?" Charlotte asks, helping Emma brush the worst of the coal from her clothing. Emma looks around, her expression uncertain. "I'm not sure. Everything looks different than I remember." "Do you know the address of your father's workshop?" William asks gently. Emma nods. 17 Ironmonger Lane. He told me to remember it. William takes charge, his natural leadership emerging more strongly now that they're away from the orphanage. "We'll ask for directions, but first we need to clean up a bit." "We look like chimney sweeps." They find a public fountain in a small square, where they wash as best they can, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by. A kindly fruit seller takes pity on them and points them in the direction of Ironmonger Lane, even offering them each an apple to keep their strength up. As they walk through the city streets, the contrast between their previous sheltered existence and the bustling urban environment is overwhelming. Horse-drawn carriages compete with early motor cars for space on the crowded roads. Street vendors hawk everything from hot chestnuts to newspapers. Ladies in elaborate hats and gentlemen in top hats stroll past beggars huddled in doorways. "Stay close," William warns as they navigate through the crowd. It would be easy to get separated. Finally, they turn onto Ironmonger Lane, a narrow street lined with workshops and small factories. The buildings here are older, many bearing the scorch marks of fires from forges and foundries. "Number 17, Charlotte reads from a faded sign above a door with peeling paint. "This is it, Emma." Emma stares at the building, emotion playing across her small face. It looks abandoned. Indeed, the windows are dark and a heavy padlock secures the door. But Emma approaches determinedly, pulling the brass key from beneath her dress. The lock on the door, however, is modern. Her key won't fit. "Maybe there's another entrance," James suggests, always quick with alternatives. They circle the building, finding a narrow alley that leads to a back door. Here, beneath years of grime, they discover an old brass lock. Emma's hand trembles as she inserts the key, holding her breath as she turns it. With a groan of disused hinges, the door swings open. The interior is dark and musty, heavy with the scent of oil, metal, and disuse. William finds a gas lamp and, after some fumbling, manages to light it, casting a warm glow over what was once a workshop. Dust-covered workbenches line the walls. Tools hang from hooks, and shelves are crowded with jars of small mechanical parts. In the center of the room stands a large table with an intricate apparatus that resembles a cross between a microscope and a jeweler's bench. "This is where he made my hand," Emma whispers, running her gloved fingers over the apparatus. "Look at all this stuff," James marvels, already examining the shelves with undisguised curiosity. Charlotte discovers a small living area behind the workshop, a simple bed, a cooking stove, and a bookshelf filled with technical manuals and notebooks. "We can stay here," William decides, "at least until we figure out what to do next." "Mr. Crawford will be looking for us," Charlotte reminds him, "and Emma needs her hand fixed." At the mention of her hand, Emma looks down at her glove. It still doesn't work right, and it hurts. William approaches her gently. "May I see?" "I won't touch it if you don't want me to." After a moment's hesitation, Emma extends her left hand and allows William to carefully remove the glove. In the lamplight, the mechanical hand gleams despite the damage, a marvel of miniature engineering. Your father was a genius, William breathes, examining the intricate mechanism. I've never seen anything like this. Can you fix it? Emma asks hopefully. William bites his lip. I can try, but I'll need to understand how it works first. There might be instructions, Charlotte suggests, already turning to the bookshelf. Notes or diagrams. James, meanwhile, has been exploring further into the workshop. Hey, there's food back here. Canned stuff, but it looks okay. The discovery of preserved food is a welcome one. None of them has eaten since breakfast. They gather around the small stove, which James manages to light after several attempts. Charlotte finds a pot and prepares a simple meal of canned beans and stale bread discovered in a cupboard. As they eat, the reality of their situation begins to sink in. They've run away from the orphanage, are essentially hiding in an abandoned building, and have no idea what tomorrow will bring. But they're together, and for now, that seems enough. After dinner, Charlotte continues searching through the notebooks while William examines Emma's mechanical hand more closely. James, ever practical, checks the security of the doors and windows before settling down to carve a small piece of wood he found, his pocket knife flashing in the lamplight. I think I found something, Charlotte announces, carefully turning the pages of a leather-bound journal. There are diagrams here that look like Emma's hand. She brings the journal to William, who studies the meticulous drawings with growing excitement. These are detailed instructions. With these, I might be able to repair it. Emma watches anxiously as William compares the diagrams to her actual hand. Will it hurt? I don't think so, William assures her. According to this, there are no nerves connected to the mechanism, but I'll be very careful. Using tools from the workshop, William begins the delicate process of realigning the damaged components. His face is a mask of concentration, his usually steady hands occasionally trembling with the responsibility. Charlotte reads aloud from the journal, guiding him through the procedure. It says to adjust the central gear counterclockwise until you feel it click. James keeps watch by the front window, occasionally reporting on passers-by. Nobody's looking for us yet, at least not here. After nearly an hour of painstaking work, William sits back with a sigh. I think that's it. Try to move your fingers, Emma. Emma focuses intently and slowly. One by one, the mechanical fingers bend and straighten. Her face lights up with joy. It works. It doesn't hurt anymore. The success brings a moment of celebration, quickly tempered by the sound of the church bells striking 8. Night has fallen, and with it comes a new set of concerns. We should sleep in shifts, William suggests, just in case. They arrange the single bed for Emma and Charlotte, while William and James prepare makeshift pallets on the floor. Despite the uncertainty of their situation, there's a sense of freedom that none of them has experienced before. They are making their own decisions, facing challenges together. As Charlotte and Emma settle into bed, William takes the first watch, sitting by the window with the gas lamp turned low. James is already asleep, his small body curled beneath a dusty blanket, his carved wooden figurines arranged protectively around him. William? Emma's voice comes softly from the bed. Thank you for fixing my hand. William smiles in the dim light. You're welcome, Emma. My father would have liked you, she continues, her voice growing sleepy. He always said hands were important, that they tell our stories. This casual comment strikes William as oddly profound. He looks down at his own hands, calloused from orphanage chores, yet still recognizably a child's hands. What story do they tell? His gaze shifts to Emma's mechanical hand, now resting peacefully atop the blanket. What story does it tell? And why was Mr. Crawford so interested in it? These questions occupy his mind as the night deepens around them. The occasional sound of carriage wheels on cobblestones the only interruption to his thoughts. Morning arrives with weak winter sunlight filtering through grimy windows. They wake to the sounds of the city coming to life. Delivery wagons, street vendors calling their wares, the distant whistle of factory shifts changing. Charlotte is the first to voice what they've all been thinking. We can't stay here forever. We need a plan. We could try to find Emma's father's friends, James suggests, through a mouthful of cold beans. Breakfast being a repeat of dinner. Emma shakes her head sadly. I don't remember their names, just their faces. William has been unusually quiet, turning something over in his mind. I've been thinking about what Mr. Crawford said, about Mrs. Blackwood collecting mechanical things. What if your father's work was important, Emma? What if that's why Mr. Crawford was so interested? My father said his inventions could change the world, Emma offers, but that some people wouldn't understand. Charlotte sets down the notebook she's been reading. Listen to this. The autonomous hand represents merely the beginning. The full integration of mechanical systems with the human form will revolutionize not only medicine but warfare. I fear the implications should my designs fall into the wrong hands. A heavy silence falls over the group as they digest this information. Warfare? James repeats, his usual playfulness subdued. Like weapons? That's why Mr. Crawford wanted to show Emma to Mrs. Blackwood, William realizes. Not just as a curiosity, but because of what her hand represents. But my father built it to help me, Emma protests. Not to hurt people. Charlotte continues reading from the journal. I have disguised the true nature of my work within the design itself. The autonomous hand appears to be merely a prosthetic, but contains within it the key to all my research. Only one who understands the underlying principles would recognize its true significance. William gently takes Emma's mechanical hand, examining it with new understanding. The secret is in the hand itself. Before they can discuss this further, a sharp knock at the front door freezes them in place. They exchange alarmed glances, not daring to breathe. The knock comes again, followed by a voice. A woman's, refined but insistent. I know you're in there. Please, I mean no harm. James creeps to the window, peering cautiously through the grime. It's a lady, fancy clothes. She's alone, I think. How would anyone know we're here? Charlotte whispers. Mr. Crawford could have followed us, William suggests grimly. The voice comes again. My name is Victoria Blackwood. I believe you have something that belonged to my brother, Henry Harper. At the mention of this name, Emma gasps. That was my father's name. William motions for the others to stay back as he approaches the door. How do we know we can trust you? He calls through the wooden barrier. You don't, comes the frank reply. But Emma is in danger as long as she possesses that hand. And I suspect you've realized that by now. The four exchange looks of confusion and alarm. Finally, William makes a decision. Stand back from the door. He unlocks it cautiously, ready to slam it shut at the first sign of trouble. But there is only a woman, exactly as James described, elegantly dressed in a fur-trimmed coat, her dark hair arranged beneath a fashionable hat. Despite her fine appearance, there's something approachable about her face, a kindness in her eyes that puts William slightly at ease. Thank you, she says, stepping inside and removing her gloves. I've been searching for Emma since Henry's death. When I heard rumors of a child with a mechanical hand at Thornfield Orphanage, I knew it must be her. Are you really my aunt? Emma asks, stepping forward despite Charlotte's protective hand on her shoulder. Victoria Blackwood's composure falters slightly at the sight of Emma. Yes, though I've never had the pleasure of meeting you before. Henry and we were estranged for many years. Why? Charlotte asks bluntly. Victoria sighs, looking around the dusty workshop with evident emotion. It's a complicated story, but I believe you deserve to hear it, especially now. As she accepts the offer of a seat at the small table where the children gather around her, their faces a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Henry was my younger brother, a brilliant inventor from childhood. Our father encouraged his talents, hoping they would benefit the family business, Blackwood Industries. She pauses, noting their recognition of the name. Yes, that Blackwood. My husband Edgar took over the company after my father's death. You're Mrs. Blackwood, William interjects. The one who's coming to the orphanage? Victoria nods, though not for the reasons Mr. Crawford believes. When I heard about a child with a mechanical hand, I arranged the visit to investigate. I suspected it might be Henry's work, but I never imagined I would find his daughter. What happened to my father? Emma asks softly. They told me he died in an accident. A shadow crosses Victoria's face. It wasn't an accident, Emma. Henry was murdered. The children gasp collectively, Emma's mechanical fingers clutching involuntarily at the edge of the table. But why? Charlotte demands. Who would want to kill him? People who wanted his inventions, Victoria explains gravely. Henry wasn't just creating prosthetics. He had developed principles that could be applied to autonomous machines, what some are now calling robots. His dream was to help people, to replace limbs lost in industrial accidents, to ease suffering. But others saw the military potential, William guesses, remembering the journal entry. Victoria looks at him with surprise and respect. Exactly, including my husband. Edgar wanted Henry to develop weapons for the government, mechanical soldiers that couldn't feel pain or fear. Henry refused. So Mr. Blackwood had him killed? James asks incredulously. I don't know for certain, Victoria admits, but I believe so, and I believe he's still searching for Henry's research. That's why Emma is in danger. All eyes turn to Emma's mechanical hand. Victoria continues, her voice lowering as if afraid of being overheard. Henry told me once, before our estrangement, that if anything happened to him, I should look for his legacy in the most unexpected place. I didn't understand then, but now I think he hid his complete research within Emma's hand. But how? Charlotte asks. It's just a hand, isn't it? Victoria smiles sadly. Henry never created just anything. Every invention had layers of purpose. William has been examining Emma's hand thoughtfully. The journal mentioned a key to all his research. Not a metaphorical key, but maybe an actual one. Like this? Emma pulls the brass key from around her neck. He gave me this before he died. He said it would open more than just doors. Victoria's eyes widen. May I? Emma hesitates, then places the key in her aunt's palm. Victoria examines it closely, then looks at Emma's mechanical hand. There's no keyhole, James points out practically. Not an obvious one, Victoria agrees. She turns to Emma. May I examine your hand, dear? I promise to be gentle. After receiving a reassuring nod from William, Emma extends her left hand. Victoria studies it carefully, her fingers tracing the intricate mechanisms. Here, she finally says, pointing to a small, almost invisible seam along the wrist component. This doesn't match the rest of the design. William leans closer. It could be a hidden compartment. Victoria positions the key against the seam, and to everyone's amazement, it fits perfectly. With a delicate click, a small panel opens, revealing a tiny brass cylinder. What is it? Charlotte asks, peering at the mysterious object. A phonograph cylinder, Victoria breathes. Henry was working with sound recording technology before he died. Can we play it? James asks excitedly. Victoria carefully removes the cylinder. We would need a phonograph machine. Henry might have had one here. They search the workshop, eventually discovering a small phonograph partially hidden beneath a workbench. It takes William several attempts to make it operational, but finally the cylinder is in place. As the needle touches the wax surface, a crackling sound fills the workshop, followed by a man's voice, warm, intelligent, with an undercurrent of urgency. If you are hearing this, then you have found the key, quite literally, to my work. I pray it is you, Emma, grown enough to understand, or perhaps Victoria, if you have set aside our differences. Emma gasps at the sound of her father's voice, tears filling her eyes. Charlotte puts an arm around her shoulders as the recording continues. The hand I built for Emma is more than a prosthetic. It contains the essential designs for autonomous mechanical intelligence, a thinking machine that could change the course of history. But I have seen the darkness in men's hearts, the desire to turn creation into destruction. There's a pause, a deep breath audible even through the recording's distortion. I have encoded the complete designs within a sequence of mechanical operations that appear to be simply the hand's natural function. When Emma plays the piano, an activity I encourage her to practice daily, the hand performs a series of movements that, if properly observed and decoded, reveal the entirety of my research. I played piano, Emma whispers, before the orphanage. Father taught me. Should these designs fall into the wrong hands, the consequences could be dire. Mechanical soldiers without conscience, tireless and precise, would make war even more terrible than it already is. Yet the same principles could create machines to work in dangerous conditions, saving human lives, or prosthetics that respond to thought as naturally as flesh and bone. Another pause, longer this time, filled with the sound of papers shuffling. Emma, my darling, if you are listening, know that everything I created was out of love for you. Your hand was my greatest achievement, not because of the science it contains, but because it allowed you to live fully despite the circumstances of your birth. Victoria, sister, I forgive our past quarrels. Please protect Emma and my work. Ensure it serves humanity rather than destroys it. The recording ends with a final click, leaving the workshop in profound silence. Victoria is the first to speak, her voice thick with emotion. All this time, he trusted me, despite everything. But what do we do now? William asks, practical even in the face of this revelation. Mr. Crawford knows about Emma's hand, and if what you say about your husband is true, we're still in danger. Victoria straightens, decision hardening her features. You'll come with me, all of you. I have a house in the country where you'll be safe while I deal with Edgar and this situation. All of us? James repeats, hope evident in his voice. You want all of us? Victoria smiles, the expression warming her elegant face. Henry's journal mentions Emma's friends at the orphanage, how she was withdrawn until 3 remarkable children befriended her. I believe he would want me to keep you together. But Mr. Crawford will look for us, Charlotte points out. He'll report us as runaways. Leave Mr. Crawford to me, Victoria says with a confidence that brooks no argument. My husband may control Blackwood Industries, but I have my own resources and connections. The plan comes together quickly. Victoria's carriage waits nearby, ready to take them to the train station. From there, they will travel to her country estate in Derbyshire, far from London and the reach of both Mr. Crawford and Edgar Blackwood. As they prepare to leave the workshop, Emma takes a final look around, her mechanical hand trailing over her father's workbench. We'll come back someday, William promises her. When it's safe, Victoria has been watching this interaction with thoughtful eyes. You care for each other deeply, don't you? Like a family. We are a family, Charlotte says firmly. Not by blood, but by choice. This declaration brings a smile to Victoria's face. Henry would approve. He always said that the strongest bonds are those we forge ourselves, not those merely handed to us by birth. They leave the workshop, locking it securely behind them. Victoria's carriage, elegant but not ostentatious, waits at the end of the street. The driver, a stoic man with a weathered face, helps them aboard without comment or curiosity about the 4 coal-dusted children accompanying his employer. As the carriage pulls away, Emma looks back at the workshop one last time. Goodbye, Father, she whispers, her mechanical hand pressed against the window glass. The journey to Victoria's country estate passes in a blur of train stations, unfamiliar landscapes, and hushed conversations. The children, exhausted by their ordeal, sleep for much of the trip, huddled together on the plush seats of a private rail compartment that Victoria secures with a quiet word and the discreet passing of money to the conductor. Victoria watches over them, her expression alternating between sorrow for the past and determination for the future. When Emma awakens briefly during the journey, she finds her newfound aunt sketching in a small notebook, detailed diagrams that resemble components of her mechanical hand. You understand Father's work? Emma asks sleepily. Victoria smiles, closing the notebook. Not entirely, but enough to recognize its importance. Henry and I studied together as children, before society decreed that engineering was an unsuitable pursuit for a young lady. That's not fair, Emma murmurs. No, it isn't, Victoria agrees. Perhaps things will be different for your generation. They arrive at Victoria's estate as evening falls, a handsome stone manor nestled among rolling hills, its windows glowing with welcoming light. Unlike the imposing industrial wealth of Blackwood Manor in London, this house has a lived-in warmth, surrounded by gardens even in winter. The housekeeper, Mrs. Winters, greets them with unflappable efficiency, accepting Victoria's explanation of "my niece and her friends" without question. Rooms are prepared, baths drawn, and a late supper laid out in the cozy dining room rather than the formal one. Clean for the first time in days and dressed in borrowed clothing that, while not perfectly fitted, is warm and of good quality, the 4 children gather around the table, almost overwhelmed by the sudden change in their circumstances. Eat well, Victoria encourages them. Tomorrow we can discuss what happens next. After supper they are shown to their rooms, Charlotte and Emma sharing one, William and James another, both comfortably appointed with feather beds and thick quilts. The luxury is almost disorienting after the Spartan conditions of the orphanage. Do you think we'll stay here forever? James asks William as they prepare for bed. William, ever the realist, shakes his head. Nothing is forever, but for now we're safe. Across the hall, Charlotte helps Emma unbuckle her mechanical hand, a nightly ritual they've established, as the hand, while marvelous, becomes uncomfortable to sleep with. Does it hurt when you take it off? Charlotte asks gently. Emma considers this. Not hurt exactly. It feels strange, like something's missing, even though it was never really there. Charlotte places the hand carefully on the bedside table. Your father must have loved you very much to create something so extraordinary. I think he would have liked all of you, Emma says, settling under the covers. Especially William. Father always said that understanding how things work is the first step to making them better. In the morning, they gather in Victoria's study, a handsome room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk covered in papers and technical drawings. Unlike the rest of the house, which reflects traditional country elegance, this room reveals Victoria's true interests: engineering journals, scientific instruments, and a small workbench in the corner. I've sent telegrams to my solicitors in London, Victoria informs them. They're investigating the legal situation regarding your guardianship. As Emma's aunt, I have a strong claim to become her legal guardian. But for the rest of you, she pauses, choosing her words carefully. The process may be more complicated. You mean they might send us back to the orphanage? William states flatly. Victoria doesn't sugarcoat the truth. It's possible, but I promise you this. I will do everything in my power to keep you together. What about Mr. Blackwood? Charlotte asks. Won't he be suspicious when you suddenly adopt 4 children? A shadow crosses Victoria's face. Edgar and I have lived separate lives for several years now. He resides primarily in London, managing the business, while I stay here. He rarely visits, and I rarely go to town. But he's still your husband, William points out with the directness of youth. Won't he find out about us eventually? Yes, Victoria admits. Which is why we must move quickly to understand and protect Henry's work. Once Edgar discovers Emma's existence and the secret her hand contains, he will stop at nothing to acquire it. Why is it so important to him? James asks. He's already rich and powerful. Victoria's expression hardens. Edgar believes that Britain's future depends on military strength. He's convinced that Henry's autonomous mechanical designs could revolutionize warfare, giving our country an advantage over our rivals, particularly Germany. But that's not what my father wanted, Emma protests. No, Victoria agrees gently. Henry saw his work as a way to help people, not harm them. That's why he hid his complete research within your hand, Emma. He knew that only someone who truly understood his humanitarian vision would recognize its full potential. Charlotte, who has been listening intently, speaks up. The recording said the complete designs are encoded in the movements Emma's hand makes when she plays piano. Does that mean someone would have to watch her play to steal the secrets? Precisely, Victoria confirms. And not just watch, but understand the underlying mechanical principles to decode the movements. Is there a piano here? Emma asks suddenly. I haven't played since before. Victoria smiles. Yes, in the music room. It was my mother's. I've kept it tuned, though I play rather poorly myself. They move to the music room, where a handsome grand piano stands by tall windows overlooking the winter garden. Emma approaches it reverently, her mechanical hand gleaming in the morning light. I'm not sure I remember how, she confesses, sitting tentatively on the bench. It will come back to you, Victoria encourages. The body remembers, even when the mind forgets. Emma places her hands on the keys, flesh and metal side by side. After a moment's hesitation, she begins to play. The melody is simple at first, a child's exercise, but as her confidence grows, so does the complexity of the music. William watches in fascination, not just the music, but the mechanical hands movements. Look at that, he whispers to Charlotte. The fingers move differently than they would need to just to play the notes. They're performing extra movements. Charlotte nods, her keen eyes catching the same subtleties. It's like a code embedded in the music. Victoria has been taking notes, sketching the sequence of movements. This is extraordinary, she murmurs. Henry encoded his entire research into a piece of music that Emma would naturally practice. As Emma continues to play, lost in the joy of rediscovery, Victoria turns to William. You have a good eye for mechanical detail. Would you help me document these movements? Between us, we might be able to decode Henry's research. William straightens with pride at being asked. Yes, ma'am. I'd be honored. And Charlotte, James, Victoria continues, I need your help as well. Charlotte, your reading skills would be invaluable in going through Henry's journals that I've collected over the years. James, your practical nature and quick thinking make you perfect for helping us test any theories we develop. For the first time, the children feel not just safe but valued, their individual strengths recognized and needed. It's a heady feeling after years of institutional uniformity at the orphanage. The days that follow establish a new routine. Mornings are spent in lessons with a tutor Victoria engages from the nearby village. A kind, scholarly woman who recognizes each child's unique abilities and adapts her teaching accordingly. Afternoons are dedicated to the project, as they come to call their work on decoding Henry's research. Emma practices piano daily, her mechanical hand moving through the secret patterns embedded in the music. William and Victoria document these movements meticulously, gradually translating them into mechanical principles and designs. Charlotte discovers that Henry's journals, while seemingly focused on prosthetic development, contain hidden references and codes that, when properly interpreted, provide critical context for their findings. Even James finds his role, using his natural dexterity and practical mind to construct small working models based on their theories. testing the principles they extract from Emma's musical patterns. Weeks pass, and winter begins to soften toward spring. The children, once pale and underfed from orphanage life, grow healthier and more confident. Emma's nightmares about her father's death become less frequent. William smiles more readily. Charlotte devours Victoria's extensive library. James explores the estate grounds, returning with pockets full of interesting stones and mechanical odds and ends from the outbuildings. Victoria watches their transformation with quiet satisfaction, her determination to protect them growing stronger each day. The telegrams from her solicitors bring cautiously positive news. As Emma's blood relative, her guardianship is almost assured. For the others, the path is more complicated but not impossible, especially given Victoria's social standing and financial resources. But this peaceful interlude cannot last forever. The threat of Edgar Blackwood and his interest in Henry's research looms like a storm on the horizon. Victoria becomes increasingly vigilant about visitors to the estate, instructing the staff to alert her immediately if any strangers appear. One crisp March morning, as Emma practices at the piano with William observing, the housekeeper enters the music room with an unusual expression of concern. "Mrs. Blackwood, there's a gentleman at the door. He says he's from Thornfield Orphanage." Victoria and the children exchange alarmed glances. "Did he give his name?" Victoria asks, already moving to position herself between the door and Emma. "Mr. Crawford, ma'am. He says he's come about the children." William's face pales. "How did he find us?" Victoria's expression hardens with resolve. "It doesn't matter. He won't be taking any of you anywhere." She turns to the housekeeper. "Show Mr. Crawford to the drawing room, Mrs. Winters. Tell him I'll be with him shortly." After the housekeeper leaves, Victoria quickly instructs the children. "Go to the library and stay there. Lock the door. No matter what you hear, don't come out until I come for you." "But," Charlotte begins to protest. "No arguments," Victoria cuts her off gently but firmly. "I can handle Mr. Crawford, but I need to know you're safe while I do so." Reluctantly, the children obey, making their way through the connecting door to the library. William, the last to go, pauses. "Be careful," he tells Victoria. "Mr. Crawford isn't what he seems." Victoria nods gravely. "Few people are, William. That's an important lesson to learn." In the library, the children huddle together near the door, straining to hear what's happening. But the heavy oak door muffles all sound from the drawing room where Victoria receives the orphanage director. "What do you think he wants?" James whispers, his freckled face unusually serious. "Us, obviously," Charlotte replies. "Especially Emma." Emma clutches her mechanical hand protectively. "Do you think he knows about Father's research?" William shakes his head. "I don't think so. Not completely. He knows your hand is valuable, but I don't think he understands why." "Then why is he here?" Charlotte asks. A troubling thought occurs to William. What if he's not working alone? What if Mr. Blackwood sent him? This possibility sends a chill through the group. They fall silent, each contemplating the implications. If Edgar Blackwood is already aware of Emma's existence and the secret her hand contains, they're in far greater danger than they realized. After what seems an eternity, they hear footsteps approaching the library door. They tense collectively, ready to flee if necessary, but it's Victoria's voice that calls to them. "Children, you can come out now. He's gone." They emerge cautiously to find Victoria standing in the hallway, her face composed, but with a hint of strain around her eyes. "What happened?" William asks immediately. "What did he want?" Victoria leads them to the music room, closing the door before she speaks. "Mr. Crawford claims that you were taken from the orphanage against your will. He's filed a formal complaint with the authorities." "That's a lie," Charlotte exclaims indignantly. "Of course it is," Victoria agrees, "but it complicates matters legally. I informed him that as Emma's aunt, I have a legitimate claim to her guardianship, and that I've already begun proceedings to adopt all of you." "What did he say to that?" William asks. "He was displeased." Victoria's understatement brings a small smile to James's face despite the seriousness of the situation. But more concerning is what he let slip during our conversation. "What?" they ask almost in unison. "He mentioned that interested parties were eager to see Emma return to proper care. When I pressed him on who these parties might be, he became evasive." Victoria's expression darkens. "I believe William's suspicion is correct. Edgar is involved." This confirmation of their fears lands heavily. Victoria continues, her voice calm despite the gravity of her words. "We need to accelerate our work. If Edgar knows about Emma's hand and is working with Mr. Crawford, It won't be long before they make another attempt to take her. Can't we go to the police? Charlotte suggests. Victoria shakes her head. Edgar has considerable influence with the local authorities, and without proof of his intentions, it would be our word against his, a situation that rarely favors even a woman of my standing against a man of his. Then what do we do? James asks. Victoria's answer is decisive. We complete the decoding of Henry's research. Once we understand it fully, we'll have leverage, and more importantly, we'll know exactly what we're protecting. They redouble their efforts, working with renewed urgency. Emma practices for hours each day, her mechanical fingers dancing through the encoded patterns. William and Victoria document every movement, gradually assembling a comprehensive understanding of Henry's designs. Charlotte discovers a crucial cipher in one of the earliest journals, allowing them to interpret previously incomprehensible notations. James constructs increasingly sophisticated models based on their findings, bringing theoretical concepts into tangible reality. As April arrives with its showers and tentative blossoms, they reach a breakthrough. Late one evening, as they work in Victoria's study, William suddenly sits up straight, excitement radiating from him. "I've got it," he exclaims, sketching rapidly on a large sheet of paper. The final sequence isn't just about mechanical autonomy, it's about mechanical learning. Victoria leans over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she follows his reasoning. Of course, Henry wasn't just creating machines that could move independently. He was designing machines that could adapt, could learn from experience. Like how Emma's hand adjusted to her over time, Charlotte realizes, looking up from the journal she's been studying. It doesn't just respond to commands, it anticipates them. Emma flexes her mechanical fingers thoughtfully. "Father said it would grow with me, in a way. I didn't understand what he meant then." Victoria sits back, awe and concern mingling in her expression. "This is far beyond what I imagined. A machine that can learn. The implications are staggering." "Is that why Mr. Blackwood wants it so badly?" James asks. "For weapons that can learn?" "Yes," Victoria confirms grimly. "A weapon that could adapt to battlefield conditions, that could learn from each engagement and improve its effectiveness. It would transform warfare completely." William looks troubled. "But that's not what Mr. Harper wanted, was it? Not weapons?" "No," Emma says with certainty. "He wanted to help people. He told me once that machines should serve humanity, not the other way around." Victoria nods. "Henry always believed that technology should enhance human potential, not replace or threaten it. That's why he encoded his research this way, so that only someone who shared his vision would fully understand it." A heavy silence falls as they contemplate the responsibility they now bear. Henry Harper's groundbreaking work could improve countless lives or cause untold suffering, depending on whose hands control it. "What do we do now?" Charlotte finally asks. Victoria straightens, decision crystallizing in her eyes. "We publish it. Not the full details that could be weaponized, but enough to establish Henry's humanitarian vision and the beneficial applications of his work. Once it's in the public domain, it becomes more difficult for anyone, including Edgar, to monopolize it for military purposes." "Won't that be dangerous?" William questions. "Mr. Blackwood won't be happy." "Yes," Victoria acknowledges, "which is why I've made arrangements for us to leave England temporarily. I have connections in America, progressive-minded engineers and philanthropists who would appreciate Henry's vision and help protect his legacy." This announcement brings a mixture of excitement and anxiety. America, a new continent, a fresh start, but also an unknown. "When do we leave?" Charlotte asks practically. "As soon as possible. I've been in communication with a trusted colleague who has arranged passage on a steamship sailing from Liverpool next week." Victoria looks at each of them in turn. "I won't force any of you to come. For Emma, it's necessary for her safety. But the rest of you, we stay together." William interrupts firmly, a statement rather than a question. "Always," Charlotte agrees. "Try to leave me behind, I dare you," James adds with his characteristic grin. Emma looks at her three friends, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispers. Victoria smiles, a genuine warmth that transforms her elegant features. "Then it's settled. We leave for Liverpool in 2 days. Pack only what you need. We can acquire anything else in America." But even the best laid plans can go awry. The very next morning, as they prepare for their journey, disaster strikes. Victoria is in the study, arranging papers and securing Henry's journals for transport, when Mrs. Winters appears at the door, her normally composed face etched with worry. Ma'am, there's a motor car coming up the drive. It's Mr. Blackwood. Victoria freezes momentarily, then springs into action. Where are the children? In the garden, ma'am, with the tutor. Get them inside immediately. Take them to the cellar passage and wait there. No one is to come out until I give the signal. Victoria moves to her desk, unlocking a drawer and removing a small pistol. Go, quickly. As Mrs. Winters hurries to follow her instructions, Victoria takes a moment to compose herself. She tucks the pistol into the pocket of her skirt, straightens her hair, and moves to the front of the house to confront her husband. Edgar Blackwood strides into the entrance hall with the confidence of a man accustomed to dominance. Tall and imposing, with a meticulously groomed beard and penetrating eyes, he radiates authority and cold intelligence. Victoria, he greets her, removing his driving gloves with deliberate precision. This is an unexpected pleasure. It's been, 6 months since we last spoke? 8, Victoria corrects coolly. To what do I owe this surprise visit, Edgar? He smiles, the expression not reaching his eyes. Can't a husband visit his wife without cause? Especially when she's been so active recently. Victoria maintains her composure, though her hand instinctively moves closer to the pocket containing the pistol. I wasn't aware that my activities were of interest to you. Oh, they've become quite interesting indeed. Edgar moves past her into the drawing room, uninvited but entirely at ease. Adopting orphans, consulting with solicitors about guardianship, making arrangements for international travel. One might think you were planning to leave me, Victoria. The casual revelation of his knowledge sends a chill down her spine, but Victoria follows him into the room, maintaining a facade of calm. I wasn't aware that you had me under surveillance. Edgar chuckles, the sound entirely devoid of humor. Not you specifically, my dear, but I do keep tabs on anything connected to Henry Harper's work. Imagine my surprise when I learned that his daughter, a child I didn't even know existed, has been living under your roof for weeks. She's my niece, Victoria states firmly. My blood. I have every right to provide for her. Of course, of course. Edgar waves a dismissive hand. Family is important, but so is honesty between husband and wife. You might have mentioned finding Henry's daughter. In his revolutionary mechanical hand. The direct reference to Emma's hand confirms Victoria's worst fears. Edgar knows everything, or at least enough to be dangerous. What exactly do you want, Edgar? She asks, abandoning pretense. His smile widens, appreciating her directness. The same thing I wanted from Henry. His research, his designs, his vision for autonomous mechanical systems. Britain stands on the brink of a major European conflict, Victoria. Henry's work could ensure our victory before a single British soldier sets foot on continental soil. By creating killing machines? Victoria challenges. That was never Henry's intention. Intention is irrelevant. Edgar dismisses. Technology serves those who control it, and I intend to control this particular technology for the benefit of our nation. At what cost? Victoria demands. Endless war? A world where machines fight our battles, making conflict too easy, too removed from its human consequences? Edgar's expression hardens. You sound exactly like your brother. He too failed to see the bigger picture. That's why he had to be persuaded. The implication hangs in the air between them. A tacit confession that confirms what Victoria has long suspected about her brother's death. You won't get Emma or her hand, Victoria declares, her hand now firmly gripping the pistol in her pocket. I've made sure of that. Edgar studies her face, then laughs softly. Always the protective sister, and now the protective aunt. But you've overlooked something crucial, Victoria. I don't need the child or her prosthetic. Not anymore. This unexpected statement throws Victoria momentarily. What do you mean, Mr. Crawford has been most helpful, Edgar explains, pacing the room with casual confidence. For months he observed the girl at the orphanage, documenting every movement of that remarkable hand. When she disappeared, he was naturally concerned, not for her welfare, but for the potential loss of his promised compensation. Victoria's mind races, connecting the pieces. That's why he came yesterday, not just to find the children, but to confirm their location for you. Precisely. And while you were occupied with legal maneuvers and preparations for flight, my engineers have been working with Crawford's observations, replicating the basic principles of Henry's design. Edgar pauses by the window, looking out over the garden. We don't have the complete research yet, but we have enough to proceed. You're bluffing, Victoria challenges. Henry's full design is encoded in a way you couldn't possibly understand from mere observation. Edgar turns back to her, his expression calculating. Perhaps, but I wonder if your young protégés have made more progress than you realize. The boy, William, I believe, quite the mechanical prodigy, according to Crawford, and the girl, Charlotte, remarkably adept at deciphering codes and patterns. The realization that Edgar knows so much about the children sends a surge of protective fury through Victoria. Leave them out of this. They're innocent children. Children who may hold the key to completing what Crawford's observations began, Edgar counters. I'm not an unreasonable man, Victoria. I'm prepared to be generous. Tell me what you've discovered. Surrender Henry's complete research, and I'll ensure that you and the children want for nothing. You can even take them to America as you've planned. After our business is concluded. Victoria straightens, her decision made. And if I refuse? Edgar's genial mask slips, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Then I'll take what I need by less pleasant means. The law favors me in all respects, Victoria. As your husband, I have authority over your property and affairs. As an influential businessman with government connections, I can ensure that those orphans are returned to Thornfield, or placed somewhere even less agreeable. You wouldn't dare, Victoria breathes, though she knows with sickening certainty that he would. I've already dared far more for less reward, Edgar reminds her quietly. Don't test my resolve in this matter. A tense silence stretches between them, broken finally by the sound of running footsteps in the hallway. Before Victoria can react, the drawing room door bursts open and William stands there, breathing hard, his young face flushed with exertion and determination. Don't listen to him, Mrs. Blackwood, he exclaims. We've seen what he really wants to do with Mr. Harper's work. Edgar's eyebrows rise in mild surprise. Ah, the young mechanical genius himself. How convenient. Victoria moves quickly to position herself between William and her husband. I told you to stay hidden, she says urgently. We found something, William explains, his words tumbling out rapidly. In the cellar passage. There's a hidden door that leads to a room full of your brother's earlier work. There are journals there that explain everything. What Mr. Blackwood wanted to do, why Mr. Harper refused. This revelation startles both adults. Victoria had no knowledge of a secret workshop beneath her own house, and Edgar's momentary lapse in composure confirms that this is new information to him as well. Take me there, Edgar demands, his voice hardening with authority. No, William refuses flatly. But Charlotte's reading the journals now, and James is helping Emma prepare the demonstration. Demonstration? Victoria questions, confused by this unexpected development. William's eyes meet hers, conveying a message beyond his words. Emma says her father left instructions for exactly this situation. She says she can show exactly what her hand was designed to do, its true purpose. Understanding dawns on Victoria's face. Whatever the children have discovered, William is giving her an opportunity, a distraction, a delay, perhaps even leverage against Edgar's threats. Very well, she says, making a swift decision. Edgar, it seems there have been developments you're not aware of. Perhaps we should see this demonstration before continuing our discussion. Edgar hesitates, suspicion warring with curiosity in his expression. Finally, curiosity wins. Lead the way, boy, but be warned, I have men waiting outside. Any attempt at deception will end badly for all concerned. William leads them through the house to the music room, where they find an unusual scene. The piano has been moved to create space in the center of the room. Charlotte sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by open journals, her quick eyes scanning pages with intense focus. James is arranging what appears to be a makeshift projection apparatus cobbled together from a magic lantern and other household items, and Emma stands in the center of it all, her mechanical hand uncovered and gleaming in the afternoon light. She looks both frightened and resolute, a child bearing a burden far beyond her years. Emma, Victoria says gently, moving toward her niece, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Emma replies with quiet certainty. Father prepared me. He said someday I might need to show the truth. Edgar surveys the scene with barely concealed impatience. What exactly is this demonstration supposed to reveal, child? Emma meets his gaze directly, her fear giving way to a calm beyond her years. The true purpose of my father's work, not weapons, Mr. Blackwood, something much more important. She turns to James, who nods and adjusts the projection apparatus. Charlotte rises from her nest of journals, moving to stand beside Victoria in silent support. My hand doesn't just move, Emma explains, holding it up so the afternoon sunlight catches the intricate brass and copper mechanisms. It remembers every piece of music I've played, every object I've touched. Father built it to learn from experience, to adapt to my needs as I grow. She turns to the piano, playing a brief sequence with both hands. The mechanical hand moves with fluid grace, indistinguishable from flesh except for its metallic gleam. But that's just the beginning, she continues, turning back to face them. The real purpose is this. Emma raises her mechanical hand and makes a complex series of finger movements. To everyone's astonishment, the hand begins to emit a soft, pulsing light from between its joints. James quickly dims the room's lamps, and the projection apparatus captures the light, casting it onto the blank wall. What appears is not just light, but images, precise technical diagrams that shift and evolve as Emma continues the finger movements. The projections show mechanical systems unlike anything Victoria has seen before. Not weapons or soldiers, but medical devices, prosthetics that connect directly to the human nervous system, assistive mechanisms for damaged hearts and lungs. Henry's true vision, Victoria breathes, understanding dawning as she watches the display. Edgar steps forward, his face illuminated by the shifting projections. What is this? These aren't the autonomous systems Crawford described. No, Charlotte speaks up, holding one of the journals. These are the healing machines Mr. Harper was really working on. The autonomous principles were just the beginning, a means to create prosthetics and medical devices that could work in harmony with the human body. William takes up the explanation. The military applications were always possible, but they weren't the purpose. Mr. Harper designed everything to prevent weaponization. The full systems will only function for healing, never for harm. Emma continues the projection sequence, the images now showing a mechanical heart pump, a spinal support system, artificial lungs, all designed with the same principles that animate her hand, but applied to saving lives rather than taking them. Ingenious, Edgar murmurs, genuine admiration momentarily overcoming his disappointment, but ultimately naive. Any technology can be repurposed. No, Emma says firmly. Not this one. Father built safeguards into the core designs. Try to weaponize them and they simply won't function. The autonomous systems require compassion. This last word hangs in the air, its implications settling over the room. Henry Harper had created something revolutionary, mechanical systems that could discern intent and would only operate in service of healing and protection. Edgar's face darkens as he realizes the implications. Absurd. Machines can't discern moral intent. These can, Charlotte insists, tapping the journal. It's all documented here. Mr. Harper found a way to encode ethical parameters into the mechanical systems themselves. They respond to human emotion, to pain, fear, compassion. Try to use them to cause harm, and they simply shut down. Victoria watches her husband carefully, seeing the calculations running behind his eyes, the reassessment of value, of potential, of threat. Even if this is true, Edgar finally says, the core autonomous principles could still be extracted, modified for other purposes. You could try, William acknowledges, but Mr. Harper thought of that too. The principles are interconnected. Change one element, and the entire system fails. It's all or nothing, his way, or not at all. Edgar's jaw tightens with frustration. The prize he sought has transformed before his eyes, still valuable, but not in the way he intended, not for the purposes that drove him to such lengths. The world needs weapons, Victoria, he says, turning to his wife. War is coming to Europe. Britain must be prepared. The world needs healing more than it needs new ways to kill. Victoria counters. Henry understood that. These children understand it. Why can't you? A tense silence follows, broken only by the soft mechanical clicks as Emma lowers her hand, ending the projection. The room brightens as James turns the lamps back up, revealing the tableau of confrontation. Edgar standing alone, facing Victoria and the 4 children who now form a protective unit. Edgar studies them thoughtfully, reassessing the situation. You realize, of course, that I could simply take the girl in her hand by force. My men are waiting outside. You could try, Victoria agrees, her hand slipping into her pocket where the pistol waits. But consider the consequences, Edgar. Even if you succeed, Henry's safeguards would prevent you from achieving your goals, and you would make enemies of some very influential people who share my interest in preserving Henry's true legacy. Influential people? Edgar questions skeptically. Why do you think I was arranging passage to America? Victoria asks. Not to flee, but to meet with Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and others who appreciate innovation for humanity's benefit. rather than its destruction. They're expecting us, and Henry's research. This revelation gives Edgar pause. The names Victoria mentions carry weight even in his circles. A direct conflict with such figures could damage even his carefully cultivated influence. And then there's the matter of Henry's death. Victoria continues, pressing her advantage. The journals in that hidden workshop contain his suspicions, his documentation of your threats. I imagine the authorities would find it most interesting reading. Edgar's expression hardens. Allegations without proof. And speaking of authorities, they still recognize my legal rights over you and this household. Times are changing, Victoria counters, and I've taken precautions. If anything happens to me or these children, Henry's complete journals, including his documentation of your involvement in his death, will be delivered to multiple newspapers and solicitors. The standoff continues, neither side willing to retreat. Finally, surprisingly, it's Emma who breaks the impasse. Mr. Blackwood, she says, her young voice steady despite the tension. My father didn't hate you. In his journals, he writes that you were once a visionary too, before fear changed you. This unexpected address startles Edgar. He looks down at the small girl with the remarkable mechanical hand, momentarily speechless. Emma continues, he wrote that you believed technology could make a better world, not just a more powerful Britain. That was before the war in South Africa, before you lost your brother. Edgar's composure slips at the mention of his brother, revealing a flash of old grief. How could he possibly know about that? Because he cared, Emma says simply. He tried to understand why you changed, why you began seeing enemies everywhere instead of possibilities. Victoria watches her husband's face, seeing something she hasn't witnessed in years. Uncertainty, a crack in the armor of conviction. Edgar, she says quietly, there's still a choice here. Henry's work could transform medicine, could save countless lives. Isn't that a legacy worth protecting? Worth more than weapons that would only perpetuate suffering? Edgar looks from Emma to Victoria, then to the journals Charlotte holds, the projection apparatus James has assembled, and the determined stance of William. For a long moment he is silent, something working behind his eyes. Calculation, yes, but perhaps also reflection. You truly believe these safeguards are unbreakable? He finally asks. Henry was always the most brilliant of us, Victoria answers honestly. If he designed the systems to resist weaponization, then yes, I believe they would withstand any attempt to subvert them. Edgar moves to the window, looking out at the spring garden where new life emerges from the winter's dormancy. When he speaks again, his voice carries a resignation that Victoria has never heard before. I've invested considerable resources in this pursuit, he says, his back still turned to them. Resources that my investors and military contacts expect to see returns on. The medical applications have their own value, Victoria points out. Perhaps not in weapons, but in patents, in advancement of Britain's standing in medical science. Edgar turns back, his businessman's mind clearly assessing this alternative proposition. And these influential Americans you mentioned, they would be interested in such applications. Keenly, Victoria confirms. Enough to offer partnerships, funding for further development. A calculating gleam returns to Edgar's eye, not the cold determination of before, but a more familiar look of opportunity recognized. I would need to be involved, of course, to protect my investments. Victoria exchanges glances with the children before responding carefully. We could discuss terms, provided that Henry's core principles are respected. Healing, not harm. It's not surrender, not exactly, but a pivot. A businessman recognizing when one venture has become untenable and another has opened. Edgar Blackwood is nothing if not adaptable. This discussion requires more formal consideration, he says finally. Legal documents, clear agreements about ownership and development rights. Of course, Victoria agrees, recognizing the implicit truce being offered. My solicitors can begin drafting proposals. Edgar nods, his gaze returning to Emma's mechanical hand. The girl and her appendage remain here, under your guardianship, I presume. Yes, Victoria states firmly. Emma and her friends stay with me. That is non-negotiable. After a moment's consideration, Edgar inclines his head in acceptance. Very well. I'll have my driver return me to London. Expect my solicitors to contact yours within the week. He moves toward the door, then pauses, looking back at the unusual family tableau before him. Henry always was frustratingly principled, he remarks, something almost like respect coloring his tone. It seems he planned even for this eventuality. He hoped it wouldn't come to this, Victoria replies softly. He hoped you would remember the man you once were. Edgar's expression remains unreadable. Without another word, he departs, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Only when they hear the front door close and the motor car engine start do they collectively exhale. Is it over? James asks, wide-eyed at the adult complexities that have just played out before him. Not entirely, Victoria answers truthfully. But we've gained time and legitimate standing. Edgar is many things, but once he commits to a business arrangement, he honors it, if only for his reputation's sake. Will we still go to America? Charlotte asks. Victoria considers this. Perhaps, though not in haste as we planned. There are indeed people there who would appreciate Henry's work, but now we can approach them as partners, not as refugees. William studies Victoria's face. You don't fully trust him, though, Mr. Blackwood. No, she admits. Trust must be earned, and Edgar has broken it too many times. We'll proceed cautiously, with legal protections for Henry's work and for all of you. Emma approaches Victoria, her mechanical hand gleaming in the afternoon light. Did my father really leave all those journals in a workshop under the house? Victoria smiles, kneeling to meet Emma at eye level. No, dear. There is no hidden workshop. William was improvising. The children turn to William with varying expressions of astonishment. You lied? Charlotte asks, impressed despite her usual adherence to truthfulness. William shrugs, a hint of color rising in his cheeks. I heard what Mr. Blackwood was saying. We needed time, a distraction. And then Emma and James came up with the projection idea, which was brilliant. Victoria praises them. How did you manage it? James grins proudly. Emma figured out that her hand could reflect light in patterns when she moves her fingers just right. I just helped with the lantern and mirrors. And the healing machines? Victoria asks. The safeguards against weaponization? Those were real, Charlotte confirms, holding up one of Henry's journals. It's all here, not in a hidden workshop, but in the journals we've been studying all along. We just didn't understand the full implications until recently. Victoria looks at each of them in turn. These remarkable children who have shown such courage, ingenuity, and moral clarity. Henry would be so proud of all of you, especially you, Emma. Emma smiles, the expression transforming her small face. I think he would be proud of us, all of us together. The phrase catches Victoria's attention. Together, she repeats thoughtfully. Yes, that's what Henry truly valued. Collaboration, connection, community. Not just between people, but between humanity and the technology we create. As the afternoon light slants through the windows, casting long shadows across the music room, the five of them stand together, not bound by blood, but by choice, by shared purpose, by the family they have forged through adversity. Outside, the sound of Edgar's motor car fades into the distance. Whatever challenges lie ahead, they will face them as they have faced everything else, together. In the weeks that follow, life at Victoria's country estate establishes a new rhythm. Legal documents are exchanged, negotiations conducted, guardianship papers filed and approved. The threat of separation recedes as Victoria's position as guardian to all four children is formally recognized, Edgar raising no objections as part of their new arrangement. Summer arrives, bringing warm days spent exploring the estate grounds, swimming in the small lake, and continuing their work on Henry's research, now with the legitimate backing of both Victoria's resources and Edgar's business connections, though the latter remains at a carefully maintained distance. On a golden afternoon in late June, the children gather on the wide lawn behind the house. Emma plays a complex piece on a piano that has been moved outdoors for the occasion. Her mechanical hand moves with fluid grace across the keys. No longer a secret to be hidden, but a marvel to be celebrated. Charlotte sits nearby, reading aloud from a newspaper article about revolutionary advances in medical prosthetics, the first public acknowledgement of Henry Harper's work, carefully framed to emphasize its humanitarian applications. James and William are engaged in flying a kite of their own design, inspired by principles found in Henry's journals, a prototype for mechanical flight that may someday help others with disabilities achieve greater mobility. Victoria watches them from the terrace, a cup of tea in hand and satisfaction in her heart. The future stretches before them, uncertain as always, but full of possibility. Henry's legacy is secure, not just in his research or in Emma's remarkable hand, but in these children who have learned to see technology as he did, as a means to enhance humanity, not control or replace it. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the lawn. The four children abandon their separate activities and come together in the center of the garden. Without prompting, they form a circle, arms around each other's shoulders. William's sturdy dependability, Charlotte's thoughtful wisdom, James's irrepressible spirit, and Emma's quiet resilience, all bound together in an embrace that speaks of family created rather than merely inherited. Victoria raises her teacup in a silent toast to her brother. In this moment, she knows with certainty that Henry's greatest invention was not the mechanical hand or the principles it contained, but the connections it has fostered, the human bonds that no technology, however advanced, could ever replicate or replace. As twilight deepens, the children's laughter rings across the garden, the sound of healing, of hope, of humanity at its best. And in that laughter, the true purpose of Henry Harper's life's work is fulfilled.